If you had asked me 5 years ago whether I'd be happy getting over 20,000 streams every month, I would have said absolutely. I mean, honestly, I probably would have thought that I'd made it because when I started releasing music, success seemed pretty simple to me. Just write good songs, get more streams, and it would feel like something meaningful. At least that's how I was thinking about it back then. And over time, I got better at that streaming part. 100 streams became 500, and that became 1,000, and then 5,000. Eventually, my music was getting like 250,000 streams every single year. 5 years before that, that number would have sounded enormous to me. But by the time I got there, something wasn't sitting quite right. How do you know whether you're building music success or just a bigger stream count? I've been thinking about that question, quite a lot lately. Partly because I spent years assuming those two things were the same, and partly because I'm just not sure they are anymore. I mean, when I first started releasing music, I don't remember questioning stream growth very much. The number was going up, and that felt like progress, and the goals kept changing, of course. I mean, I remember when that little under 1,000 streams label on Spotify bothered me. I desperately wanted to get past it. And soon enough, I did. If that's all that you want to do, it's really not that hard to figure it out. Then there was another target number, and another one after that. I wanted to keep getting bigger and bigger streaming numbers. And at the time, all this felt completely normal. I mean, I never really stopped to ask what those goals were supposed to produce. A few years ago, I remember posting my streaming numbers on socials, and I thought, why not? I was proud of them, and honestly, I wanted people to see them. At the time, I looked at those numbers, and I thought they meant something. A couple people congratulated me. Most people just ignored that post, and I figured they were all jealous, the same way that I was before I figured those things out. But one person responded differently, and he kind of taught me a bit of a lesson. I don't remember exactly what he said, but the message was basically don't get too excited about the streams. And at the time, I completely disagreed. I mean, in my stubborn mind, the streams were the whole point. And if the number was growing, that meant that things were working. I thought, what else was I supposed to be looking at? So I more or less dismissed what he said and I moved on. And looking back, I feel just a little bit embarrassed about that interaction. Not because I posted the numbers and not because I was excited about them. I think it's because I was just so sure of myself. I mean, I was completely convinced I knew what success looked like. It never even occurred to me that he might be seeing something that I wasn't. And obviously, in hindsight, I know he saw something that I couldn't see yet. He was looking at my numbers and he was thinking, I know how you achieved this. I've been there myself. And the funny thing is that it still took me years to figure out what he meant. A big part of the reason for my massive stream count growth was that I got involved with stream teams. At first, I loved them. I mean, what's not to love? After all, the streams were going up. Everything seemed to be working. Then one day I realized something. I realized I couldn't remember a single song that had played over the last hour. I just sat there for a second because that wasn't what I envisioned when I first started. I mean, the whole point was supposed to be listening to music and other people listening to mine. But somewhere along the way, my attention had drifted toward the metric instead. Music wasn't my priority anymore as I was chasing these streaming targets. And that thought stuck with me. And it shook me. And I felt like a hypocrite. I mean, 5 years ago, if you told me my music would eventually generate 250,000 streams in a year, I know exactly what my next question would have actually been, which is, how much money does that make? And at the time, I thought I had a pretty good idea. Of course, I didn't. I remember opening my distributor dashboard and looking at one of my royalty reports. The monthly number was under $35, and I just sat there staring at it for a second, because all I could think was wait, how many streams was this month again? Now, to be fair, most of my music is collaborative. A lot of those royalties are being split 2, 3, sometimes 4 ways, and that's part of the story. But even after accounting for that, I remember doing the math and realizing something. 250,000 streams sounded very different when I was just getting started. Back then, I heard numbers like that and I imagined a completely different reality. I remember sitting there thinking, okay, if I'm actually serious about this, streaming just can't be the entire plan. And that was a strange realization. Because for years, I had treated streams like the plan, not part of the plan, the plan. Looking back, I think that was the first time I started separating the music business from the stream count. Up until then, they had always been kind of the same thing. And I was having these realizations and I didn't know what to do. So I decided to make a video where I was trying to answer a simple question, which is, how do musicians actually make money? And I figured I could teach myself through my own research, and maybe the viewers could learn from it too. And one thing surprised me almost immediately. Teaching music lessons is probably one of the most straightforward paths to replacing day job income. And I remember looking at the numbers and thinking, that's interesting because, the funny thing is I never really pursued that. It's not because there was anything wrong with teaching. Obviously there wasn't, but I just wasn't trying to build something like that. I still cared a lot about building an audience around my own music, which also meant accepting something very uncomfortable. I probably wasn't going to quit my day job anytime soon. I still found myself thinking about stream growth constantly. I was in denial. I would sit there thinking through different ways to get the numbers higher. One day I remember imagining an entire room in my house full of tablets, 20 or 30 or maybe more of them, all running Spotify playlists all day long from multiple accounts. I was thinking like a mad scientist, dozens of devices, everything running around the clock, as though music is like this math problem that you have to solve. And I remember sitting there thinking how I could make it work. And then a different thought suddenly entered my head, like, what the hell am I even doing right now? I don't mean that in a moral sense. I mean it literally. I was sitting there trying to solve this massive problem. Somewhere along the way, it had stopped feeling like music because if I was being honest, I didn't really like where my thinking had gone. A few years earlier, I would have been excited by an idea that promised more streams, but this felt different. I was imagining a room full of tablets playing songs that nobody actually hears, and the whole thing felt just empty. And then one day I found myself thinking about all of them at the same time, the artists that commented on my post and the stream team realization and the royalty reports, even that ridiculous moment where I was imagining a room full of tablets all running Spotify all day. And for the first time, I started wondering if they were all connected. They all seemed to point back to the same question, which is what exactly was I expecting the stream count to do for me? And the honest answer was that I wasn't completely sure anymore. I started finding myself reading things that I probably would have skipped right past a few years earlier, like what a PRO is and which one is better, BMI or ASCAP. And I remember watching videos that normally wouldn't have held my attention for more than maybe 30 seconds, videos about sync licensing and advice about selling beats. And now I was sitting there thinking, wait, how does this all work? I didn't even know that artists could do all of that. I'd learn something new and immediately think like, why did nobody tell me this before? And then I'd realize they probably had been, I just wasn't paying attention. And for the first time in a long time, that curiosity felt more exciting than the stream count. And what happened next wasn't especially dramatic. I just got overwhelmed. There seemed to be 100 different directions I could go. And for a while, I just mostly made music. And then every once in a while, something would catch my attention. And BMI was one of those things. I remember looking into PROs and thinking, well, this seems like a no-brainer. There was literally no reason not to do it. So I signed up. And around that same time, I started looking into sync libraries. I wasn't approaching any of it with this grand plan. I was just pulling on different threads to see where they went. And the truth is that none of these actions happened quickly in my story. A lot of these ideas sat in the background for a long time. I would think about them, talk about them, and then go back to making music. And months would pass, and then I'd come back to them again. Eventually, they stopped feeling so foreign, And once they stopped feeling foreign, it became much easier to actually do something. And the funny thing is that I still care about streams. I still like seeing the numbers go up if they do. I still think they matter, and I have fun finding creative ways to get new audiences. What changed is that they stopped being the center of everything for me. A few years ago, most of my attention was pointed at the stream count. These days, my attention goes in a lot of different directions. Sometimes it's a conversation. Sometimes it's a question I don't know the answer to. Sometimes it's like a licensing opportunity, whatever. But, and I still check the stats, but it's just not the way that I used to. A year ago, I checked my stream counts every single day. I was constantly opening Spotify for Artists. I'd look at the numbers in the morning. Sometimes I'd look at them later in the day as though they would be different. And I was always wondering if I'd hit a new milestone. And these days, it's just way different. Sometimes I'm curious and I'll check, but that's about it. The obsession is totally gone. And I'm curious how many other artists have gone through something similar to that. Have you ever reached a goal and realized it wasn't solving the problem that you thought it would solve? If so, I would genuinely love to hear about it in the comments. As for me, I'm still figuring a lot of this out. I've only recently started acting on many of these ideas, so I'm sure there's going to be plenty more observations ahead. If that sounds interesting, feel free to subscribe and follow along.